I'm Allison Jonjak, the Cranberry Outreach Specialist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. These videos are the on-demand recordings of UW Extension and the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association's virtual brown bag lunch series. These monthly sessions offer growers and researchers a way to share timely and relevant information. We hope you'll enjoy and continue to engage with us.
Hi, I'm Tom Lochner, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. We're excited to be a partner with Extension to bring you research-backed resources, tools, and tips to keep Wisconsin marshes productive and profitable.
What we want to do is continue to provide educational programs for the growers and keep you updated on what's going on in the growing season and share information and management practices with you, as well as give you a chance to meet some of the new people that are coming on to support the growers here in the grower community. As many of you probably have heard, we had a couple of board meetings last week. Both the Foundation Board and the Growers Association boards met, and at those meetings they made a decision to cancel the events that they had scheduled for the rest of this summer. The summer meeting, field day, and trade show, which was scheduled for August at the research station, has been canceled for this year. The board and the education committee are looking at some type of an alternative program, and we'll be working on that, and we'll keep you posted. It'll probably be some type of virtual meeting and program with some information for growers. The other events that the foundation took a look at were their two fundraisers, the golf outing and the sporting clay shoot, and out of abundance of caution, they just canceled those as well. And they will be looking again at alternative programs to raise some funds. We're disappointed that we had to take these actions, but I think it was taken in the best interests of the grower community and our staff and our volunteers and people who participate in that event. So next year, the summer meeting, we're very pleased that we received an invitation from Robert Detlefson at Whittlesey, who are celebrating their 150th birthday. Robert doesn't look that old, but the board enthusiastically accepted that invitation. So in 2021, we'll be at Whittlesey outside of Rapids in Cranmore, and then 2022 we'll be at the research station. So those are the updates. And we do plan on holding additional sessions like this. We're going to try and do them at least once a month. We hope you find them helpful, and we're looking for your feedback and any ideas you may have for topics. So with that, I'm just going to turn it back over to Allison.
So thank you for all those updates. We're, again, disappointed at the not being able to have a face-to-face summer meeting, but we'll be able to hopefully get all the information that we can get virtually communicated, and, you know, again, reasonable to act in favor of everyone's safety. Next up, we have Dave and Christina of Ocean Spray Cranberries. They're the research scientists, and then Pamela Verhulst with Ladybug, and Suzanne Arendt with Red Forest IPM. Wanted to go through and have each of them give a short little introduction of what they've been seeing in the fields thus far in the year. And then we can have open question and answer after that. So Dave, would you want to lead off?
Sure, guys. All right. Well, for those of you that haven't met me before, it's nice to be on here. So right now out in the field, we're starting to move in. We're moving into the peak bloom window, and we'll be moving out of bloom here in the next couple of weeks. Growers are starting to get their game plans together for those insecticides. So far this year, I would say we have had some hot spots, but in general, we've been pleasantly surprised by how well growers seem to have done in controlling pre-bloom insects, particularly spanworms and cutworms. Pressure, I mean, there are always hot spots. We do find a few, but in general, it seems that growers have been able to really keep on top of that this year, which is great to see. In terms of bloom conditions, I guess I'll comment real quickly on that. I'm sure others will as well, but last week we had gorgeous weather for bloom for stuff that had opened up. It was, you know, mid 80s, sunny, wonderful. Beds were just humming. This week, the first half of the week was not the best, rainy, kind of overcast, not quite the conditions you'd hope for. Yesterday was a nice day, but then looking ahead, we see that we're moving into a very nice window as well. We're looking at some mid-80s, bright, sunny, no rain, winds below 10 miles per hour, all that good stuff. Right now, I guess in terms of our trap counts, we're noticing that sparg and cranberry fruitworm are flying throughout the state of Wisconsin. Numbers definitely ticked up for both those pests this week. Black-headed fireworm and girdle are also flying, although we have not seen huge numbers of those in our pheromone traps this week either. I don't want to steal everything, so I'll pass it off to Christina and others, but I'm also happy to take any questions.
Oh, sweet. Short.
Yeah, I think, you know, as everyone knows, Dave and I work very closely together, so I don't have a ton to add on to that because we've been seeing the same things out there, and our scouts reporting the same thing. So I guess in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and pass it on to someone who scouts different marshes. So Pam, if you would like to go.
Sure, I can start. So in addition to so the black-headed fireworm, I guess, our hotspot, it will be the third week of flight. So then growers will be addressing those next week. And then we are gearing up for our fruitworm sprays. And we base those on percentages out of bloom. So our newer varieties, our newer plantings, and then our hybrids will probably be around that time next week as well. And just for our growers, that we've been really pushing switching up modes of action. So some growers will be using Intrepid again, which they haven't used in a few years, just to help stay on top of that rotation of mode of action so we don't run into any resistance issues. Something else that's been going on, the last, let's see here, 2 weekends ago, we had a really strange, probably like a dew point frost. So we're seeing a lot of frost damage, which is unfortunate for this time of year because we do have the tender hooks and we had some blossoms out there. And this was kind of across City Point, Plainfield, Babcock, Necedah, Wood County, Juneau, and Jackson. And just talking to the growers, it was likely like a dew point thing because their alarms weren't going off. Yeah, Suzanne, why don't you go ahead and add anything?
So anyway, hello, I'm Suzanne, and I actually just prepared something, so I'm just going to kind of read that quickly here in the minute or so that I have. 2020 has been challenging on many fronts, and the growing season has been no exception. We've had a difficult start to the spring, and very cold temps prompted growers to flood multiple times. Water supplies were good, but the last 17-degree temperature that arrived in mid-April threw our spring schedules, and many growers flooded again. Those that did not were held back in areas but have since balanced out growth nicely. Pre-emergent herbicide timings were off for some growers, and I've seen a bit of an increase in grass herbicide work this year. The maples, dewberry, and moss continue to be hot topics for discussion as management of these weeds continue to be a challenge. I had less participation in bug flooding this year. Many growers opted out if they had lower yields on the beds that they flooded in 2019. Regardless of whether I agree with that assessment, we had success with the insecticide sprays. Overall control has been successful this season, and I believe that all my lures are working effectively, so that is definitely a nice comfort. Right, Pam? Yeah. Mostly in my traps are, mainly the sparg and starting to see an increase in cranberry fruitworm. In early June, we had hot temperatures that caused some wilting and some very noticeable dehydration in areas, especially on new plantings. Some growers also got hit with hail in early June, but I saw and heard of no significant injuries. We were definitely grateful for the growth above the hooks at that time. 2 weeks ago, we had bee arrival, hooks and blooms present. We suffered a damaging frost, as Pam was mentioning, on the marshes. Most growers were able to manage that frost, but some growers were not, and I think I've seen the most frost damage that I've ever seen probably in the last 24 years that I've been in the industry. And then finally, last weekend, many growers struggled to get rid of about 4 inches of rain in 2 days. So the pumps have been running nonstop and growers doing the best they could to help their neighbors. Beds are wet and managing new planted beds and dikes have been nothing short of way too much hard work. We are looking forward to drying out. Despite all of this, I think the southern crop potentials look good, and bee activity, as David was saying, was very good yesterday. I continue to have some concerns about where we're going to be at with fruit size this year in the back of my mind, but I'm looking forward to the warm temperatures coming this week, which will move plant development and pollination.
Thank you. Thank you for all the detail there.
I'll add a couple of things. So the hail that Suzanne mentioned came through kind of south of City Point, and it was like golf ball size. It was really big hail, but it was at that, I guess, there's no perfect time, but it was at a good time where we didn't have the hooks. But I did have a couple growers that had it assessed, and I had a grower that had 8% and then a 13.5% damage. So I guess we could say an average of maybe 10% loss of crop due to that hail event. And then, yeah, a lot of growers backed off on flooding for insects, in addition to what Suzanne said, but also because they had to do that flood mid-April, and it was just a lot of water and a lot of flooding. Yeah.
And then I can add a little bit of what's been seen from the Northern Territories, and that as our ice came off this spring, revealed an awful lot of leaf drop. And so a lot of the northern marshes are looking at troubleshooting that and finding out what was more susceptible in terms of varieties, in terms of root strength, and those sorts of things. So that's been a hot topic in the other counties, just since we had, I think, a pretty deep southern understanding and not a lot of mention for the north. Wanted to get that in front of people as well. So thanks for all those updates. We want to open it up to growers to ask the consultants and the scientists any questions. What's been percolating through your minds right now? What are you scratching your head over? I see Nicole's asked a question into the chat, so I'll read that one out. But then again, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask, or add it into the chat box and I'll read it out. So Nicole asks, based on plant stage, what are we seeing throughout the industry compared to 2019 and then compared to normal? 3 weeks ago, we were spot on plant stage 2019 to plant stage 2020. Have we moved closer to the normal timeline instead of 2019?
I can answer if you guys
Go for
want.
it.
So last year we were about, so the old rule of thumb was peak bloom by 4th of July. And last year that's what we had, but the year before that we were like 50% out, like we were way ahead. So, and then we do use the Pest Bulletin 30-year growing degree day average, and we're not by, we're closer to last year than the 30-year average. We're still quite a bit behind like the 30-year average. So I would compare it more to last year than 2 years ago.
Thanks for that. That's hopefully our nice sunny next week forecast will help push us a little more forward again, but good to know where we're sitting. Can I ask some more questions from others who might be?
I guess I have a question for the growers. For those of you who flooded for frost protection in that really cold April, those really cold April temps versus irrigated, and some of you I know did it both on your properties, are you seeing a difference from flooding and running your sprinklers for frost protection?
I might make a poll out of that since no one's speaking up. If you don't speak, we're gonna get the answer out of you anyway. So
Pam, are you thinking
I'll make a really fast poll.
insect pressure or plant growth stage?
Can you repeat that? Your sound was a little soft.
I said, I was wondering if Pam means insect pressure or plant growth stage.
Oh, I guess I was referring to the plant stage, but we can talk about insects too. If you saw, yeah, and I can add my observations on the insect pressure too after we do a poll on plant stage.
All right.
Pam, from the north, what I saw was we had a pretty long flood. It would have been a little bit earlier of growth stage than what you guys had down there, but everybody did it in my area, and we are probably the same stage as Cranmore growth stage right now. So we're tracking ahead, and I think that held us ahead. There's a couple areas that didn't get fully flooded where the tips were out, and they're noticeably behind by 7 to 10 days. And I also think that did double as kind of a basic introductory bug flood, because our bug pressure has been trending quite low up here in general.
All right, I'm going to launch this poll.
Oh, sorry, I'll add, we had water on our entire marsh in that mid-April, and some of our neighbors had some water on and some not. And you know, going around to the different marshes in our neighborhood, I could definitely see that the growers, in some cases who did not flood, their vines were behind, but I can't really see a difference now. So it seemed to me that if they were behind and if it was because of not flooding, it's kind of insignificant at this point.
So I made that poll multiple choice. So if you flooded, indicate, you know, flooded and whether your plants are ahead, behind, or neutral. If you flooded and irrigated, you can check both and the comparison between your flooded and irrigated. We're still getting votes coming in.
While you're voting, I'll ask the northern growers another question. So I think it's interesting that you guys are like neck and neck with the central growers now. That's really cool. I did hear actually today a grower talk about the heavy wet snow you guys had this spring, and that potentially causing like a lot of leaf drop. Is that like your observation? Do you think it was the heavy wet snow? Do you think it was something else? Or did it not affect you guys up there?
Well, we had a mystery leaf drop situation. I'm not sure if it's snow or not. I think that plays a component in it. I don't think it's the magic bullet of that's what causes leaf drop. There are areas and edges that have more. I would say it's definitely a culprit. That's about as far as I can see from what I'm seeing around me.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and show our results here. We had more people flooded than frost protected than irrigated, and so we had more than 50% flooded. 40% of total people say that they flooded and their plants came out neutral. 28% of total people flooded and their plants are currently ahead of where they usually are. And then so yes. 3 out of the 25 respondents flooded, but their plants they feel are behind. Whereas only, I guess we had 5 people irrigate, 3 feel neutral. Sorry, 6 people irrigate. Simple math. 6 people irrigated. 3 of those people say that their plants are in about a neutral state. 2 people say that their plants are ahead, and 1 person says that their plants are behind. And that compares with 10 flooded that feel neutral and 7 flooded and feel their plants are ahead. You guys can see that. I hope someone can give me a nod or a thumbs up. Great. That's an interesting piece of information.
What else would be interesting for a poll is who experienced some of that frost. And I don't know if anybody wants to share, like if they paid attention to dew point, if they have any theories of what happened on their properties, if they did get it. And just to agree with Suzanne, this is the most frost damage we've seen in a really long time. And it ranged everywhere from just the margins of the leaves on top, the tender new growth, just the margins, to the whole tip, like crooked over, to the hooks being like brown, like not going to make it. So there's varying degrees and just different areas that experience it.
All right, I believe I've got this ready to send out there. And I apologize for the wording being choppy, but I hope you can understand based on Pam's explanation what each of these is supposed to mean. And so Amaya's asking, what do you mean it was a dew point frost? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So just listening to the growers' stories, so their temperature probes, some of them would go off at 35, 36, whatever they had them set at. So it woke them up, they went down there, and then it kind of jumped back up. It was just a really bizarre cold. And I talked to some, they're like, well, my management decision is I will feel the vines, and if they're dry, I'll start up. And others are like, well, the temperatures bounced back up, so I didn't start, yet we had frost. And so we experienced this a few years ago, and it was due to the dew point. So I guess it's just kind of an assumption, but in talking to people, that's kind of how they felt too.
So in that poll, we came back with 77% have not had frost. 8% have frost kind of on the margins of leaves, 12% with the whole leaves having frost damage, and 4% entire hooks are brown. So that is a, little sobering. I've got a couple of questions have come in from the chat, and one is, one quick question I'm going to ask is Sean Steffen on the call? We have one question that is on sparg and cranberry fruitworm emergence. And we're hoping to hear from him. And while anyone can answer to see if he's here, Nicole asks, any thoughts on how fast bloom is moving through in the last week? Does anyone have bloom percentages per day? And are you tracking ahead of normal or around 7 to 8% a day once they start moving out? How fast are you moving out of bloom yet? And if you are moving out of bloom, how fast are you moving out of bloom? I've mostly seen northern marshes, and we are not on our way out of bloom yet, thankfully. But want to hear from people who are. How quickly are you moving out? And this is, I think, a question for growers and consultants both.
Stephen here from the north. I would say this is the fastest I've ever seen bloom move. I recorded like early scattered bloom on one day and 40% bloom in bloom like the next day. So we're going to translate super quickly, especially this warm weather coming.
That is quick.
Yeah, I'll just echo on that comment of Stephen's. We're definitely seeing bloom progress very quickly, and then some of the early hybrids as well moving out of bloom. I'd say down around the Toma area, maybe about 15 to 25% out of bloom, and then Stevens are still haven't quite moved out of bloom yet. Dave and I have a project assessing bloom across different cultivars. So we'll sample in bloom and out of bloom percentages within 2 beds per cultivar, and we collect data 2 times a week. So we haven't analyzed any of that data. This will be our second year collecting data. So it'll be definitely interesting to look at the differences between this year's bloom and how quickly things have progressed, and then compare it to last year as well. But really, we want to get a handle on, really how fast things are progressing, supported scientifically.
Thanks for that. And we've got a couple people that typed their results over into the chat. So Danny Faber says some people could have been caught off guard by the forecast too. Friday was supposed to be cold and wasn't, and both Saturday and Sunday night were cold. Her early stuff is not quite 50% in bloom yet. And then also, it looks like we're going to have to follow up after the call about cranberry fruitworm and sparg emergent states. That's something we don't have information on this call, so we'll be able to follow up after the fact. We've got about 10 minutes left, which should be, 3 meaty questions or 4 quick questions. So if there's anything that you are considering, or you want to hit, want to dive into as soon as we're out of bloom. So one thing that Pam and I had been talking about was the intrepid restrictions for the Karner blue butterfly. And when those restrictions were first put in, it was on a county by county basis. They've since tightened that up a little bit. So if you go to the EPA's website, and I've got a link to that in the WSCGA newsletter that'll come out next, and Pam also put a link on Facebook. You can go to their, they have an interactive page, and they've got a map that has, here's where we actually have locations of the Karner blue butterfly. So if you're in those regions, you need to follow the additional restrictions. If you're not in those regions, you're able to follow the label as it's written without restrictions. So that was just one thing that might be of interest as people are branching out their insecticide programs.
I guess I can give a nematode update for Sean, because we've been working on those. So Stephen and Nicole are on, and then Jeff Bentz is not, but we've been rearing them. And then I just delivered some last night to a grower in like Wisconsin Rapids, Buren area. And he applied last night, and I went there this morning and grabbed like his catch cans, and they came out alive. So that means they got applied on the bed. And we do need to know more about the life cycle of the flea beetle, because we have to hit the application while the larvae are out there. They can't be apes and they can't be pupa. So we're going to do multiple applications. I know Stephen and Nick are rearing theirs, and hopefully they're, maybe they can give an update if they're going to get theirs on during bloom or when, but we just did one last night, and then I'm going to hopefully get him another round next week and repeat it again. And if we have enough, do it 3 times. I don't know, we'll see.
To follow up on that, I was going really well with my nematode project, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Basically what happened was I got busy planting, and they all died for some reason. So we're not just learning about the nematodes in the field, we're also learning how to develop these systems to grow them on farms, and everybody's kind of got a different little thing, and some are working great, and mine was not. That's definitely a management problem on my fault, so I'll take ownership of that. But very cool study, beginning stages for sure.
And Nicole said that her application went on today. Nicole, have you had anyone out to check whether they made it on alive like Pam's did? Either way, I was able to watch as Sean was distributing the cultures to the pilots here, and what an interesting process that we're currently learning. It should be something that should be doable on farm. I mean, your ingredients are mealworms and paper towels and time and water and attention. So it looks like it'll be pretty neat, and looking forward to learning what the growing pains are, so that the rest of you can skip the growing pains.
Yeah, they went on well. We didn't climb through the boom today, but they shouldn't have a problem with the boom as long as you modify it and take your screens out. We just did it with a watering can and some hot spots, probably about an acre worth. So
okay,
they looked
cool.
good. We looked at them right before we put them on. We had almost 2 million in an acre, which is well above what we needed to for per week.
A lot of roundworms.
Well, and then to add, Nick, you probably had a lot more, because I counted, and Sean said, well, whatever you see, you probably have like 3 times more, because we can't see the smallest of the nematodes, the smallest one. So, and our Steve Stewart actually did it at Wood U, and he took the nozzles off, took his screens out, and like I said, he had a guy run and catch some for me so we can take that question out, like, did they even make it out of the boom? So we know that they made it out of the boom. And he used village water, so we know, like, treated water was okay. And so we're learning a lot, and I had him take some temperatures for me too, just to know, like, how warm his water was and how warm the soil was and things like that, just so when we have questions later, we have some data on that.
So we put them on while the irrigation was running, and it was cloudy, so we did not put them on during the dark. They can't be put on with sunlight, but it was cloudy out, so we'll see. It was a pretty quick turnaround with applying them.
Very interesting. In about 5 minutes left. Any other questions from anyone who hasn't spoken yet?
Pam, do people understand what the purpose of the nematodes are then?
Okay, so it's cranberry fleabeetle is becoming one of our #1 pests in cranberries, and we looked at we've been researching it, I don't know, Christelle, about 5 years or something. Anyway, just to learn more about their life cycle and how to control them, and our only way of controlling them was the adults, and they emerge in August, and they can, like, keep chewing and eating our cranberries into September, and we really are running out of insecticide options because of pre-harvest intervals and just things. And they're really difficult because they are beetles, coleoptera, so they come out of the ground and they're not all present at once, and you spray them and then they come out again, and we just can't get them in one spray. And some of these growers were using up to 3 sprays this season, just trying to get them to stop eating their cranberries. So now we're trying the biological insecticide at hopefully during this larval stage so that they don't come out and chew on our cranberries.
This is Christelle. I was trying to find our graph when we were following the life cycle, and we did some trapping in the field that my postdoc Ben Jaffe did. And the first, now I can't remember what year that was. I think it was 2017, 2018. I can't remember. But the first larvae that we detected doing that every other week or so was June 19th. So we're starting to have larvae. So now you are at a good timing, I would say, for spraying, if that's what you're looking at. We're still finding eggs throughout all the way. We have a gap in August, early August, and then we still see eggs until November 15th. So the eggs are present throughout from June until end of September, even November, we still had some eggs. So you kind of have the overwintering eggs and then the new eggs with a little bit of a gap. Larvae are really hard to find when we do dig. So the fact that we found some is quite amazing. But June 19th through August 1st is when we had larvae. So the nematodes are really attacking the larvae in the ground. And so the idea is that the nematodes will sustain themselves once you apply them and will continue to be there. I mean, we have nematodes everywhere. And they're very ubiquitous organisms. So that's something that if they are put into the ground and maintained the proper way, which will take a little bit of time to know exactly how we do that, but we should have a sustaining population, hopefully at some point.
And that way, even though different eggs are going to hatch into larvae at different times, you'll have a sustained population of nematodes to prey on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. With about 1 minute left, I'm going to launch one more poll, which is whether you learned more than one useful thing today, or if you already had this information. But I want to thank everyone for joining us. This update and conversation with our crop consultants and with our ocean spray scientists. Extremely excited to have Leslie join us even early to say hello. Looking forward to when she'll be able to start in August. And been glad to get to hear from you all, and looking forward to, as we have more and more of these virtual brown bags under our belt, we'll have more and more audience interaction. So grateful for you guys for joining us and learning with us. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and share it. It looks like we have had 78% of people learned more than one thing. 22% of people learned learned one thing and nobody already knew everything. So good that we're all getting to learn from each other. Grateful for Tom, for Jordan, for Leslie, for Dave and Christina, for Pam and for Suzanne, and Christelle jumping in and sharing a little bit too. Nicole and Stephen and Jed for jumping in. Can let you get to the rest of your afternoons. It looks like it's about to start raining here a little more in earnest in Rapids. So hope that you all have something good to do, whether it's indoors or outdoors. And of course, do good work and stay safe.
Thanks, Allison. Take care, everyone.